Hello and welcome back to the port. I'm the Gap Major, and this is a review of the American Premium Tier 4 battleship USS Oklahoma, available as a Bureau project this patch as a start. Currently, there's no end date on that Bureau project, but you never know, they might introduce one in the future. Now, this is a Tier 4 and 5 game of Domination on Trap. On the enemy team we have a Mahan, an Emerald, a Trento, Pride of Veliki, Congo, Queen Elizabeth, double California division, and a Visor. So it is a carrier game. Spawn on the right, and we're going to see what we can do, and a game of Domination Trap. There we go, okay. So, USS Oklahoma is the second member of the Nevada class battleships, which was a strength of 2 ships, Nevada and Oklahoma. Now, she was commissioned in 1916 and served in the latter part of World War I as a member of, well, in assistance to the Royal Navy Grand Fleet working out of Scarborough Flow, but then also worked off the Irish coast, providing convoy escorts to American troop transports. Trento. Now, unfortunately, Oklahoma was sunk in the Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, with the loss of 429 of her crew. She was salvaged in 1943, however, she was decommissioned in 1944, and upon being towed back to the mainland, not sure if it was for further salvage or scrapping, she unfortunately sunk in a storm. Thankfully, the 2 tugs that were pulling her along did manage to cut their lines and actually escape with their lives, I guess you could say. So, as always, in comparison to the tech tree tier 4 battleships in this case, we're going to be going over the stats, and as always, it's worth. I think in this case, because her sister ship is a tech tree ship, we will do some other comparisons to the Nevada as we go through as well. Obviously, I'll point those out. So starting off with survivability, you have the third lowest HP of 48,200, which is the same as the Nevada. You also have the third highest HP pool. This is due to a slightly improved repair parties, but we'll talk about those a little bit later on. Now, when it comes to the torpedo reduction, you're average at 18%. When it comes to the armour, it's always best to go back to the board and take a look at the armour scheme there. So, back in the fort, taking a look at the arm scheme of the Oklahoma. Let's start off with the usual typical superstructure. Again, as per pretty much most cases, it's practically all 30mm plating, apart from the command citadel. So, yes, it's going to get penetrated by a lot of things. However, there's not a lot of superstructure, which is worth noting. So, it's not a large area that can be targeted, which is obviously advantageous. Now, I think what we'll do is we'll jump onto the bow and the stern. Now, this is mostly 19mm thick, which isn't going to be able to resist pretty much anything. I think you can only resist up to 102mm AP shells, which is quite intriguing. That's basically going to be some of the lighter guns and destroyers and secondaries. So it's not great armor, I guess you can say. So let's just take those away. Now, the torpedo bow. Interesting to note, it's 25mm thick, which means it can actually ricochet 14-inch shells. So first of all, that's worth noting, that she does have this ability to ricochet 14-inch shells off the torpedo belt. However, if it gets through that, we're onto your main armoured belt, and we'll come back to that. Now, starting off with the upper armoured belt, this is practically 19mm on the top and the very top deck, and then 25mm on the lower deck. So that does have the ability on the lower part of the upper armoured belt that can resist 14-inch shells, but your deck armour isn't that amazing. So shells will be coming in through the deck, which obviously means that she's quite harvestable, I guess you could say, to some of the HE spam and stuff, because there's going to be a lot of area of this ship that they can penetrate. And it's worth just taking a look at the noses as well. That's even more area which you can penetrate through. Taking that away, let's go on to the main chunk of the armour. Let's have a look at those turrets and barbettes. Yep, nice thick armour all over, all the way down to the citadel. So it's literally just going to be down to usual RNG. And it's worth just noting, because we're just about to go into the artillery segment, the lower turrets are triple gun turrets, where the upper turrets are dual gun turrets. And we'll mention that when we go into the artillery. Taking those away, The lower armoured bout, well, this is absolutely chunky. That's pretty much going to be able to ricochet all AP shells. So obviously, if you can keep it angled and it's hitting that bout, then obviously it's going to be beneficial. Obviously, going slab side on, it's just going to punch straight through, unfortunately. So it's only really when you're angled. Worth noting, there's a little bit of a turtle back here. Now the inner plating is only about 51 mil, but you can also see how it kind of like tops off on your citadel. So talking about the citadel, let's have a look at that. As you can see, it's got that kind of angled ends or edges, so obviously yeah, it is a turtle back, and it is just more armor which is going to be protecting you. 51 mil, I mean that's sufficient to ricochet 15-inch guns, so you do have a lot of armor survivability wise. It's also worth noting the front bulkhead of your citadel is obviously quite thick as well, so being angled at the front is going to be quite good. Just be a little bit cautious about angling at the rear, because that's a lot thinner at the back there, only 25 mil, it's only going to stop 14-inch shells, but worth looking at the citadel overall. It is only just a smidge above the waterline, so it's not going to be easy for people to find. Anyway, that's the Oklahoma all looked over in regards to our armor scheme, so let's go back to the game. Welcome back. So we'll start talking about the artillery, and well, we've already mentioned her gun layout partially in the armor reviewer, but she has 10 14-inch guns with B and X turrets being dual gun turrets, and A and Y turrets being treble turrets, in order to get a total complement of 10 guns. Now B turrets and X turrets are both super firing, obviously AB at the front and XY at the rear. Now, she has the joint above average range of 15.1 kilometers, which is 500 meters more than the Nevada, which is quite interesting. She has the joint seconds reload of 34 seconds, and she has the joint seconds slowest turret traverse, which is 60 seconds per 180 degrees of rotation. Ooh. Oh. Not quite sure. Ooh. Someone managed to get a cheeky hit on me there. Oh well, continuing, she has an average HE shell damage of 4,900, which is 100 less than the Nevada. She also has the below average fire chance of 27%, which is 3% less than the Nevada, I believe. And she has the fourth highest AP shell damage of 10,000, which is 300 less than the Nevada. Now, when it comes to the DPMs, she has the third lowest HE DPM, second lowest fires per minute, and the third lowest AP DPM. So it's quite amusing to think that her DPMs are going to be slightly worse than the Nevada, simply just due to those minor tweaks in regards to shell damage and other things like that. Now, when it comes to her manoeuvrability, she is the joint slowest at 20 knots. Obviously, joint with the Nevada, it probably may not surprise you. She also has the joint third smallest turning circle of 610 meters and an average rudder shift of 13.4 seconds. Now, when it comes to concealment, she's joint best by sea, which is 12.9 kilometers, joint best by air as well, which is 10.4 kilometers, and she's got an average detectability when firing from smoke, which is 11.3 kilometers. Time to make a move into the objective. So, when it comes to the consumables, she's obviously got 3 repair parties. These will heal 240 HP per second for 28 seconds, which means that you will be able to gain 6,720 HP from each repair party, and this has an 80-second reload. Now, this is where I was talking about those repair parties being slightly better. In comparison to the Nevada, the Oklahoma's repair parties heal 36 HP per second more, which is obviously quite advantageous, I guess you can say. When it comes to the damage control parties, she's got the typical American damage control parties, which will take 20 seconds duration and an 80-second reload. Now, regarding her third consumable, you can take 3 catapult fighters, or you could take 3 spotter aircraft, or you could take free enhanced secondary targeting. And now obviously they all have their benefits and their quirks. In this instance I've gone for the fighter on the assumption I was going to get a carrier game, and lo and behold I have. However, the carrier seems to be working right out on the other flank. Now, when it comes to the modules in the command build, that will all be down in the description, but when it comes to the modules, obviously I've taken AA Guns Module 2. Your alternative would be secondary battery module, and I guess there is the main gun module which you could take, but the main gun module simply only improves your turret traverse at the cost of reload speed, and I'd rather not. Like, your turret traverse is bad, but your reload's bad, so it's like you make one better at the cost of making one drastically worse, and it's something I wouldn't really want to go for, I'd have to confess. When it comes to the command build, my command build is probably rather odd, I must confess. So I've taken Dewey, so I can take Velocious, and then what I've done is I've taken Guépratte and Fraser's inspirations, so I can actually get some speed out of this thing. Obviously it's not a maxed out commander build, he's only quite lowly ranked, but I'm able to get 22.8 knots out of this thing, which is, it's more than 20. It's only 2.8 knots more, but it's a little bit more. It makes it a bit more manageable for me. Because one of the biggest issues I have with the American battleships is their speed. I just don't... That lack of ability to move around the map sometimes can be a much of a hindrance, as you can see from the New Mexico on our team, who obviously got himself a bit further back out of the action. He's now that much further at a disadvantage. But we're going to push around and see what we can do. Spotted by aircraft. Torpedo aircraft coming in, so we're just going to launch the catapult fighter preemptively because we've got plenty of them. And you never know, it might be just enough to drive the torpedo aircraft off. Especially when it's a tier 5 carrier, you can remove aircraft quite quickly, and it obviously affects the total ability of the craft. Well, the aircraft actually deal damage. Obviously the California's there, but the visor's just there, which is intriguing. I mean, ideally I should probably go for the cap, but the carrier is worth a lot of points. That's the interesting one. The carrier is worth a total of about 110 points. It's more than a battleship. So it might be a little cheeky advantage. If we can knock out their carrier, that removes a lot of spotting potential from their team, but also will give us a 100-point swing, which is obviously going to be advantageous. So I think we're going to have a crack at that. I think we'll come around this corner and see if we can assist in the removal of the enemy carrier. So we've got our guns all trained off to our port side. As we slowly approach. Oh, I wish it just had a little bit more speed. She's nose on, which could be advantageous for our AP. If it doesn't all bounce off the deck. Oh, that's good. Just gotta make sure I put myself in a position to do a quick 180 and get back into the cap zone, I think. We'll start doing the 180, break it down to only the front guns. Queen Elizabeth. That is tempting. California as well, actually. I think we won't go back into Bravo. I think we'll see if we can open up a bit of a crossfire. It's worth looking at the map. I'm here. We've also got battleships there. So it means basically between us we can almost draw a crossfire. So if we can take advantage of this crossfire, they can angle against everyone. 14-inch guns, armour against 14-inch guns. So I'm going to aim slightly higher there. 3 overpens. I might aim a little bit lower down. It's all a bit of an experiment, I guess you could say, as I'm not so familiar with these American battleships. Might aim maybe mid-bout and then let the dispersion spread the shells around. Let's see what we get with this spread. Queen Elizabeth is next. So this is the situation we're putting the enemy team in. Is they are trapped between a rock and a hard place, basically. The Queen Elizabeth looks like she's going to be out of the game. Oh, she might be healing, but there she goes. Looks like it's going to be the turn of the Emerald next. So now the Emerald's found himself in a very horrible place. Which way is he going to turn? And that just leaves the California. So we've pretty much put their team into a horrible crossfire, and then we've just mopped up on the numbers. Just leaves a California left, which is, I guess, better than having their carrier left, because if there's a carrier left, he would have run to the back of the map and we wouldn't be able to find him. So overall impressions of the Oklahoma. I mean, if you're into this kind of slow lumbering style of battleship, she's probably not going to be much different in regards to everything else that already exists within the tech tree. However, for me, it's not my cup of tea. I have to confess, it really isn't my cup of tea. It's a playstyle that I don't find that interesting, because I find them like down at these low tiers with these slow battleships, especially the Americans. You kind of have to play the long game. You can't just kite in and kite out. You kind of got to make sure that you're in a position where, if you have to push, you're actually in a position to push, because your speed means that you have to keep up the team. But also you have to read the map quite a lot. If you suddenly get isolated on the flank, you're not going to be running away from anything. If there's a destroyer hunting you or a cruiser hunting you, there's not going to be much you can do about it. Thankfully, obviously the good turning circle and in combination with the rudder shift does make these quite nice and tight turns, which does mean it can improve your dodgeability of torpedoes, I guess you could say. Well, that's the end of the game, and that's going to be as much as I want to really say about the Oklahoma and my personal opinions on her. I think it's just a conclusion that you've got to draw yourself. At the end of the day, it is a free tier 4 premium ship through the Bureau, so there isn't really any reason to not go for her. If you are missing a tier 4 premium, obviously those premium supplies will be helpful. So only 58,000 damage, getting 3 kills, 1 citadel from 38 hits on target. Managed to get a solo capture as well, and first blood. Team results, third in the team, can't really complain about that in a game which I was up tiered as well, which is quite amusing. Economy wise, managed to make 165,000 credits with a premium count. That's following a ship service cost of 21,600. Now, it's worth mentioning she obviously does come with a Type 9 permanent camouflage, that is useful. But as I've already mentioned, down in the description will be the command build and the modules. Also, the email address to the channel if you want to send any of your own game captures for the community spotlight video, and link to Patreon if you want to support the channel on Patreon. If you are Patreon, you'd love the names to be appearing on the end screen. Until next time, I'm the Guépratte Major, and back to the port.
Hey, hey, clear the way, here comes the galloping Major. Bumpity, 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 bump. Get out of the way there, you fellas.